Hello, you guys. Happy Thursday. Here's the thing, a lot's been going on for all of us. I think we all have a cosmic hangover. I think that sometimes I choose silence in order to show respect for everything that has transpired this last week. Those shootings were so awful, weren't they? And there's really no astrological salve for things of that tragic nature. There's really nothing that I could say that explains it or, erases the energy that overtook the week, other than to say, when you look at things in retrospect, hindsight's 2020, there were so many planets in Aries. Jupiter was in Aries. Jupiter also, side note, was in Aries when the Sandy Hook shootings happened, as well as when Columbine happened. So patterns and trends for sure, and there are things to ponder, but I don't like to use astrology to talk about really hard things like that because I feel like it's more visceral than that, and we all need to have our own process around those kinds of things. So I wasn't even going to make a video this week, and then I thought, there are some things going on this week that I wanted to touch on and speak to. There was a new moon, though I doubt it felt cleansing to any of us, just the resounding heartbreak and grief of just processing. And I just feel like there have been so many more sirens around my house. There's been so many more sad news stories. Marion Barber dying, football player, but there's just a lot of sports players dying. A hiker was found in the woods. A freaking girl got gored by a buffalo. It's like, what? Everything is just really spun out. And sometimes astrology can't always explain the spinning out of the great wide open of our human choices and human nature at large. So here we opened this week with a new moon, and maybe there was an availability for you to be able to access your feelings or your thoughts in a new way and to find a new path towards processing, which I hope is true for all of us. I think that when we all get stuck in a mindset of things have to be a certain way, that's when big cataclysmic events happen to show us how silly we are for thinking that forever things are going to be one way. I struggle with things like the Constitution because it was created such a very long time ago. And while I also am very seeped in my own, family's traditional values and whatever else we get taught as young people, I don't ever want to forget that the stars and the moon are always asking us to reinvent ourselves, and that America right now is in a Pluto return. We're being asked to reinvent the wheel, and not having done it in a jaunt, there's going to be some pain and growing issues that come with differing opinions because we all live on different sides of the street. It's how we cross the street, I think, that is what's up for review right now, if you ask me. So we had this new moon, and we're still in Mercury retrograde. My cat's got in my cabinet and broke 3 bowls just to get to the bread that's in my cabinet. So that's how Mercury retrograde has been treating this household. I've become very unattached to things, and glass things particularly, and there have been a lot of toe stubbings and systems down and, overall hijinks in that department. And I really have grown these last few weeks fond of the very coyote nature of this Mercury retrograde. It was very hijinksy. I don't know if you experienced that as well, but it was very hijinksy for me. It was a Mercury retrograde in my house of relationships, and I got really sick, and so did my kids, and so we were home for weeks, So this is the first week we've really been out and about into the real world again, and maybe also why I was trepidatious to make a video again. There is this cocooning that happens when our bodies, aren't functioning the way that we wish they would. Okay, so here is our new moon. It's not as lovely as maybe would be desirable. Gemini is a real vibe. It's vibey, okay? Gemini gets a really bad rap, but let's talk about why it gets a really bad rap. Let's talk about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? Because as a society, I think there are things that we enjoy being able to count on. And what I love, maybe it's a love-hate relationship, about Gemini is it's not like a you can count on me energy, because it's very mercurial, ruled by Mercury. It wants to shift, it wants to change, it wants to learn. These are really cool things. Dependable things? Maybe not so much. Trustworthy? Maybe not all the time. But it's like the journey of going into a dark tunnel and trusting that despite what happens, there's going to be an outcome that's going to shift you and change you. And having like righteous belief and faith is what Gemini energy is all about. Like to have this righteous belief that you can play mental gymnastics with yourself and that you still get to be you at the end of it. Just maybe a different version of you. It's so funny that it seems in this world we have an aversion towards change. We have an aversion towards progress in ways that feel threatening to us. And really the question is, what is the threat? Like, what is your mind telling you is going to change if we go this route instead of this route? I see it all the time. Like people that are super attached to going in a certain direction to a destination. And it's like, I live in freaking Ashland, Oregon. So whichever route I take, it's like a 2-minute difference. So does it really matter? But that's the source of attachment. And Gemini is not an attached sign. It doesn't want to be. It wants to have the ability to scream and rage while at the same time, the next minute, the ability to meditate deeply. This is what Gemini energy asks us to do. And within a person, a Gemini human, someone who's very mercurial, the high road of that is flexibility. The high road of that is new, distinctive thoughts. But the low road of that is inconsistency. The low road of that is flakiness. The low road of that is literal bipolar disorder. The ability to make a choice and stick to it is not always Gemini's strong front. To me, that's what makes Gemini, as a Libra who likes both sides, it's what makes Gemini really compelling. That's the word I like to use for Gemini season. It's a compelling time, right? So we start June. Some of us are still in school, some of us are still in a routine, and then summer hits. And the beginning of summer really takes a notion of the routine away. Whether you're a parent or not, its vibe is different than when we're in spring. And all seasons are different, but the way that school ends, the way that there's like a collective ending, and then what do we do now? Feeling like people graduating, people, there's a lot of change that goes on in June. There's a lot of passing of the guard that goes on in June. And these things can be hard for those of us that have a lot of earth energy, for those of us that want to have stable ground always. Gemini is always bidding us adieu to the things that they're not into anymore, and on some level that takes a righteous amount of self-care to be not for me anymore, going over here. I can't tell you how many people I know that stay in bad relationships, that stay at bad jobs, that stay in bad life situations because the notion of change is just too hard for them. Not Gemini though. High road of Gemini sees everything as an opportunity, sees every thought as a new notion, and that kind of newness can be scary for a lot of us, and that kind of non-commitment can also be the low road of us. When some of us are feeling very mercurial, it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? You never know what you're going to be met with in the morning. And I think that's perfect for what is going on in our world today. When we wake up, we have no idea what's going to be in the news lately. It's just been a righteous shit show of this, that, and the other, and tragedy and big happenings, and that is the scary thing about Gemini. And I think that it's why cosmically Geminis get such a bad rap. You know, Geminis are really good manipulators. They can be really good liars because they don't necessarily think that their lie is an all the way lie. You know, this is where there's a difference between a lie and a tall tale. There's a difference between telling the story and then telling the facts. There's a difference between interpretation and what actually happened. Gemini is founded on the game of telephone, right? Because it's all how it goes through our mind, goes through our little washing cycle, and gets dried out into our own human opinions. That's what Gemini is here to teach us is, you know, to not be attached to our own rinse cycle. You know, how can we move in a way that's flexible mentally? Because a lot of us get into our own mental gymnastics and tie ourselves up in knots because we're not flexible. And so Gemini is always asking us to be flexible. What Gemini can learn from everything else is a little bit of patience. You know, it's like when summer hits, you want to go out of town. You want to put kids in camps. You want to start gardening. You want to start this, that, the other. This has been a shitty, crazy pandemic time. We want to start concerts and all of these things. Gas prices are through the roof, and yet there are all these articles saying we're traveling more than ever. Well, because we weren't able to travel. So, you know, it's like skate or die at this point. So there's a lot of pieces of that Gemini energy that are really great because I think we're all ready to refuel, wishing it wasn't so expensive, but ready to do that. But on the other side, afraid of what it means when we decide that we're going to do this. We're going to go to the concerts. We're going to open up the world again. And when that happens, there's always going to be a consequence and there's always going to be another side of the story. And Gemini is here to tell all of the sides of the story. And if you're someone who gets triggered by a good story, then this could be like hard vibes. All right, so here we are. We're at the end of Mercury retrograde. Congratulations. Here is your hand parade. We have finished. This is the last day. Whatever hijinks is gonna squeegee itself out of you. Allow the stubbed toe and the broken dishes and the flower petals everywhere. Tomorrow it goes direct. Here's something that happens, though, that maybe is kind of getting in the way of the collective deep breath of Mercury going direct. Is Mercury and Saturn were coming together as Mercury was going retrograde. Here they were about to meet, and then Mercury's going to go direct, and Saturn is going to go retrograde. Saturn is going to be retrograde in Aquarius until October 22nd. So, while this is a really big shift, it's a long game, guys. We're thinking long game, not short game, okay? When Saturn goes retrograde, depending on where Aquarius falls in your chart, it's asking you to look at that part of your life and what needs some tinkering. Like what needs the principal's office? Like what you didn't do your studying, or did you? It's a review. It's Mercury retrograde is a review too, but it's a review of the systems that don't work. The gun systems, for example, that isn't working for our collective. So Saturn is more like not systems, core being. Okay, Saturn is our guide. He is our greatest teacher. He's our father energy. He is this, when I think about a Saturn retrograde, I think about what is it that's going to be pervasively coming up for me in my life that I need to learn a better lesson, or I need to really put some juice and focus and work into, because what Saturn loves is hard work. And if you are willing to put in the work, if you're willing to do your collective ditch digging, then Saturn is chill. Like Saturn likes us. Saturn wants us to be on our most righteous path of Dharma. But sometimes we have Saturn returns, we have Saturn cycles that are very painful, that involve a lot of loss, that involve a lot of things feeling like they're getting taken away from us. But the lesson of Saturn is that it got taken away for a reason. So this retrograde, think of the things that you've lost. think of the ways in which you have had to shift and move this year, and think about if you're righteously following a new path that is based on your highest good. Because we can't get anything accomplished when we're not making our proverbial beds. I said dishes last week, I'm making our beds this week, okay? We need to do our dishes. We need to make our beds. We need to tinker with our cars. We need to make sure that our collective oil changes are being done properly. Mercury retrograde messed it all the fuck up, and we need to back it on up and take a second look and see if the work that we've done was a Band-Aid or stitches. Are you making sure that everything that's happening in your life right now is working towards your highest good? Do you need to have 3 bars of chocolate, or can we just have 1? Do you need to binge watch Netflix all day, or can we just do it for the evening time? There's small rituals that matter a lot. Saturn loves a good daily ritual. Saturn loves a made bed. Saturn loves when we are looking at our lives from a how can I be better? It's like our, for our bosses when they do our yearly reviews. This is a review. This energy wants us to look at the sector of our chart that has Aquarius. It wants us to take a deeper dive into how we're showing up into that energy and how we can do it more efficiently. And, Gemini really gives us the capacity mentally to see it from a different from like a different angle, from a different perspective. And that's going to feel refreshing. It might feel threatening at the start, but in general, I feel like it's going to be really refreshing to have a retrograde where it's giving us the opportunity to fix the things that aren't working. Sometimes Mercury retrograde it breaks the things that already weren't working. It wrecks systems that weren't set up well. It gets hijinksy, when we've put the proverbial Band-Aid on instead of the true healing. But Saturn, this is like soul work. Saturn gives 0 fucks necessarily about stitches or Band-Aids or whatever. It's like, what is your skin doing? What are the macrophages, which are the things that stitch our skin back together? How are they operating? Functionally, it's the core of who we are. It's not the systems that we live in. It's the core choices that we make that's up for review. And so it can be a deeper retrograde than Mercury. It's longer, and it asks a little bit more of us internally. It's not so much the world happening to us. It's more our inner systems speaking to us and trying to have this review of what could be done in a better, more efficient, way. And then you get the 7 of Pentacles, which is patience. It's that the world is here for us. We all have the ability to be indeed living our truly best lives, but we have to be our best selves. I think of Don Miguel Ruiz's, languages, his 4 agreements, the being impeccable with your word, the not taking things personal. This is a spiritual practice. Saturn is a spiritual practice. Allowing lessons is a spiritual practice. And seeing things from a different perspective is a practice. Being willing to say, maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe I am the problem. Maybe I am the one not seeing the availability of what is here for me. Maybe I am the one seeing the glass half empty all the time. Maybe I'm the one not getting the lesson that's going to propel me into the next place of true divine happiness, Because I do believe we all have the ability to manifest goodness around us, no matter our life circumstances. America's history should show us that, or just history at large should show us that wartime can happen, and pain and poverty and hunger and illness and sickness, and there's still greatness on the other side of these things. There's lessons. We're bad at learning our lessons. America is bad at learning our lessons. We have a lot of work to do around accountability. And so Saturn is Mr. Accountability. And that's my advice to you this week. Righteous accountability for how you are or are not showing up in this Aquarian sector of your life or life in general. Like where are you feeling a little malaised or unhappy? And where's your part in it? Where are you not seeing all of your abundance and pentacles? What are you waiting on? What are you hungry for? And how are you, your own worst enemy, in achieving it? These are the deep questions to ask yourself going into the weekend, because this is going to be a longer lesson. We're going all the way into October here, right? So it's just an invitation to look at your habits and to see if under the cover you've tucked in the fitted sheet. Like, are you tucked? Did you do the work, or did you just throw the sheets over? You know, it's really important to ask yourself how you're showing up for yourself and for your family and for your work and for your relationships. And if there's a department in your life that seems like it's not working, instead of always going to a negative place or a victim place or a pain place or a grief place, say, what's my piece in this grief? What's my part in the way in which I am expressing my righteous anger? You know, we're all allowed to be angry, but we're not allowed to take it out on schools, on government, on our friends, on our loved ones, on our pets. We're not allowed to just say, my voice is the biggest one because I'm the star of my own show. Newsflash, we're all the stars of our own shows. We all think we're really important because we're living a life, and that's important. I'm not saying it's not, but what is more important is living a life where first we do no harm, and living a life where first we're thinking about how we have contributed to the impact we have had on our lives. So, accountability, checking to see how you're making your beds, and really sitting with how you could change something this summer, because Gemini's into it. Let's change, let's move, let's think differently. That's what Gemini wants. And with this big Saturn retrograde in Aquarius, Aquarius is like big mind, big thoughts. How can we start thinking bigger, bolder, better? That's what I want for us as a collective, and that's what I want for you personally. I hope that all of the processing has gone well for all of you. I hope the Saturn retrograde shows you a nugget of accountability and leads you back to a way of living that's going to make you more fulfilled and happy. Please remember to like and subscribe to my page so that you get updates when I make videos and to make me feel like I'm not talking into the great void. Comment, like, anything you like. I hope you guys have a beautiful week and weekend.